see a lot of people right now who need, just because of the market, who need these rush inspections. And, I want to get into some of the details on the inspection report. But first, do you have to be the bearer of bad news sometimes?
Well, you know what? I'm just there to tell the facts, and the house is really the bearer of bad news. If that's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's never me; it's just the house.
That's a good way to look at it. And as people go through the house, oftentimes, when we have the change of seasons, people are thinking, well, geez, there might be drafts with winds, there may be leaks, there may be warm and cold spots in a house. As we just found out from Heather, she has some cold spots in her house apparently. Are there ways that people should be addressing some of these issues?
Well, there's no question about that. Weather stripping is always a huge, huge factor. Furniture's placement, and for Heather's situation, extra sweats.
Yeah, no kidding.
Are probably the best thing to go with. But windows and doors are no question a huge, huge issue, and insulation.
And when you start looking at windows, let's just talk windows because, hey, it's nice out. We're supposed to have a nice week. People might be looking out their window wondering how they can play outside. Or even if you're in your home, it's nice to look out the window sometimes as people go through this nice springtime, which we'll probably have for about a week. But when do you know if you should, I guess, if you're looking at your window and you're at home, do you repair it? Do you replace it? Windows have all sorts of funky problems.
Well, windows do have a lot of problems. They have a lot of wood windows out there that have rot. You got to realize that windows as an overall commodity have about a 25-year lifespan as a typical rule. Now, we see a lot of wood windows out there that have been around for 100 years. But they're painted shut. You can't get them open. They've got rot in them. They're colder than heck. They've got putty falling out of them. So when you get to a situation where it's like the maintenance on it or the basic comfort of it makes you want to replace the window.
How does somebody know? Is it a comfort? Is it a feel thing? Because I've been in houses, you go to I would say, okay, neighborhood like Queen Anne, and you'll see houses with windows, and literally, I think they're being held together by the paint.
Well, there's no question about that. They
right?
are. They are. There's a lot of windows.
Are.
I take my probe a lot of times into a window, and they go into those frames like butter. And it's like, boy, it's time to start thinking about replacing these windows.
Yeah.
The other thing is comfort. There's a lot of issues. Styling, ease of operation. The new windows, of course, they slide up beautiful. They actually fold in, so they're easy to clean. A lot of different options. So,
they fold in?
They'll actually fold in. When you lift them up, you can actually
it's
click
clever.
a lever. They'll fold in so you can clean the outside of the window to put it back out and not have to get up on a ladder, which if you're talking about upstairs windows, it's a really, really nice feature.
Mine are filthy. But I don't have fancy windows like that, Jim.
Well, neither do I, Ben. And neither does Heather.
Yeah, apparently. So when do you really realize that you talked about probing your window? That's probably not something most people are doing on a daily basis.
Windows, so much of it, one, if they've actually started failing, if they've rotted, if the condensation in the window or on the window. Now, if you have a single pane window in aluminum, you get a lot of condensation on the glass during the wintertime, and you get condensation on the framing. It's also kind of destroying the woodwork around the window. The newer windows by kind of 1980 on up that are thermal pane that have the double glass, a lot of those have started to fail in between the glass. So the seal has gone bad, the gases have gone out, and we're starting to get moisture inside of them. So you can't see out the windows. So I think that's
really makes it more of a wall, doesn't it, Jim?
Well, exactly. I was going to say that's one of the beauties of windows. That's kind of that feel-good thing of a window is you get to see outside. Now, the problem with windows is they have virtually no R value. Okay, R value being the insulation rating, and in an attic, nowadays we're actually putting R49, which is about 16 inches of insulation. Walls are typically nowadays R21, but a window is typically about R2. Okay, if it's an insulated window, and even the triple pane windows that you can jump up and down on, they're still R2, R3. They don't really add a lot of value. So when you're looking at windows, do you have the money to do it? That's really a big issue because they aren't going to give you a lot of energy savings cost. They will give you comfort, though.
Now, there was companies, I believe they went out of business, but there was a company, Penguin Windows, I believe, that was around town. And they used to say they'd, come in and they could save you tons and tons of money on your energy bill. And I think there's still window companies out there that is their, what they're saying. It's at least their marketing pitch. Are you saying that's not necessarily accurate?
That is definitely not true. Okay, they definitely will not save you a bunch in terms of the R value. Okay, what they will do is they will be more comfortable. Okay, if they're installed properly, so there are no air gaps around it. If they are installed with a proper material, woods and vinyls are much more comfortable typically than metal, although the metals wear better. Now you can get wood and vinyl windows that have metal on the outside. And you need to think about where you're living to. Over here, where the weather's cooler, vinyl is great. You don't want vinyl windows in Arizona; they'll melt. Okay, you got to have metal windows down there.
Interesting. So the different parts of the country actually have different styles of windows that are better.
Yes, they change a bunch, like the jalousie windows, which we don't see here, but every time you go
What is a jalousie window?
Well, you go to Hawaii or Florida, and you see those nice little vent windows that actually have just air kind of flowing through them, and you have a little handle that you can drop them down that are almost like a blind. Mm-hmm. Okay? We don't have those here. It's too cold.
Oh, yeah. So, okay, there's no windows, really. It's more just blinds.
It's exactly. And they're absolutely fabulous. I love it when I can use a window like that.
When the breeze is 80 degrees coming through that cools you down.
It's pretty amazing, no question about it.
Seattle kind of gets a shaft. No matter how nice it gets here, we're never going to get those windows.
Yep. When you go to think about replacing windows, remember that you can replace one window at a time. Ideally, I think if budget is a bit of an issue, kind of look at maybe replacing one side of your house at a time so the house kind of looks good.
Sure.
Okay, and if you're in a condominium or a townhouse complex, you're definitely going to have to check with your association before you do that, because the windows, they want to keep a good semblance of look throughout the entire complex.
Jim Estrada joins us, owner, president, and lead inspector at Fort Property Inspector, LLC. We're discussing the windows in the homes that you own or you may be buying. Talk a little about, you talk about replacing one at a time or one side at a time or all of them at once. I would imagine that it's less expensive, as for the whole project to do it all at once, but sometimes you have to maybe just eat the elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah, that's true. And then it's also going to be a function of the kind of window you get, okay? They vary so much in terms of expense. I mean, if you want the nice wood windows with the wood mullins that are the crisscrosses through the windows and those kinds of things, I actually bought some really cool windows, and I don't know if they'll make them anymore. I had to really fight to get them to do it, but it was I wanted a diamond grid in them, and I found some windows that had a diamond grid, but they were done with a prism tape. So they look like leaded windows, and they're absolutely beautiful, but you don't have the lead in them,
yeah.
So you don't lose the R values, and they're easy to clean.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, so it was really cool, but I don't think you can find them anymore.
Custom windows. Do you tend to think that if you're getting a good quality window, what are some things people should look for?
Well, when you're looking at windows, in terms of quality of windows, you want to look at just overall appearance. You want to look at operation. I think you definitely want to go to a showroom to look at things. And you want to look at...
Or look through them, Jim.
Yeah.
Right.
To look through them and operate them.
Yeah, right. But, you look at the window, you kind of... I would think if you're in one of those showrooms, you're kind of thinking, well, they're all clear. Brand new windows.
Well, they are, but they sure look different.
Do they?
Don't they look different to you?
I don't know. I've never been window shopping.
Heather, tell me, when you look at a house with different types of windows, do you like some windows better than others?
I'm just glad Ben knows that you can see through all
I
of
can
them.
see through windows.
That's what you should be looking for.
That's what happens when you have a 2-year-old and a baby at home. You start discussing whether you can see through windows or not.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so obviously clarity, they should all be pretty clear. But what are some of the other aspects of the quality window? We've talked about the clarity. We've talked a little about the R value and what they're going to do as far as insulation. Is there other big factors?
Well, I think installation is a biggie. If you get a basic window that's an insert, you can just cut out your old window, pop it in, and it goes in very, very quickly in about an hour's time without a whole lot of destruction, okay? Now, my concern with that always is if they're going to be weather tight, which, of course, the installers say, oh, yeah, weather tight, but it's also going to be involved weather tight with a bunch of caulking, okay? I prefer real windows that have the flanges where you have to take the siding off, got to bust into things a little bit. It's a lot more work. Take you a good day or two to do each window versus an hour with the other way. So considerably more expensive, but you know it's going to be weather tight. Now, you may choose to do one on your weather side where the rains are really hitting, and that may be the choice that you should definitely make if the rains hit your house real hard on one side. If the other sides, it doesn't really hit much, then the other types of windows will probably work out fine. So that could save you a lot of money, too.
It seems that installation would probably be one of the keys, because if you're talking about drafts and you're talking about weather, no matter what, the greatest window, if it's not installed right, isn't going to make any difference.
You're right about that, and I consistently inspect brand new homes that don't have header flashings over the windows, and one of the biggest keys to proper installation is proper flashings. And it just amazes me that the new builders consistently don't put them on, but sometimes they'll put them on the front. They'll put them just on the front of the house, even if it's not to the non-weather side, but we get the heavy exposed wall, and there's no header flashings.